Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Apollo's Odyssey. I'm your host, Apolla Asteria, and we have a very special guest with us tonight, Leo Zagami, who I've had on the show a few times before, and I'm excited to have him back. Of course, he is another host here on Aftermath FM, and if you're following me on YouTube right now, please make sure to download the Aftermath app because there are a ton of really incredible hosts on this channel, and you're going to want to check that out. If you're listening on Aftermath right now, please check out my YouTube channel, Apollo's Odyssey, as I am doing my best to grow that. I'm getting close to 5,000 subscribers finally. It's been a while. It's been a long time coming, but yeah, almost there. So, there's so much going on in the world. We have a lot to go over in tonight's show. So, this is going to be really amazing, and I am excited for this. Before I bring Leo on, I want to share with you all my art because this is how I fund myself and keep myself going. And especially right now, I've been traveling, going around to conferences and whatnot. And I really encourage you to check out my spears because I sponsor my own show with my art. So, Shaman Spears are uniquely handcrafted energy channeling devices, which I have invented myself. They all have copper coils, crystals, magnets, and sand collect from sacred places around the world down the insides. And I never make any two the same. They're all 100% unique. They're all autographed by yours truly. They are painted with crop circles that have been found around the world. And I have a new collection I'm working on right now, which I am really excited about. It is almost ready. But I do have new products up on here, which are these organite daggers and some new organite pyramids, which I made myself. Also, some organite bracelets, for your special little lady friend. Might want to check that out. I actually picked flowers in my backyard in the Hollywood Hills here and put them in these. So pretty fun stuff. Also, of course, we have the I Believe in Humans t-shirts with the Paul's Odyssey show logo on the back. I have a few of those left. And yeah, so definitely check those out. And like I said, I'm working on a new collection, which I will be showing at an expo this weekend. So if you're in the LA area, you might want to check out this expo this weekend. And I'll go ahead and pull this up here. If you want to check it out, go to livingx.la if you're in the LA area, and it will be the Christmas Expo. So just click on the Christmas Expo section. Also, of course, I've shared these on all my pages, but the event is on the 4th, and I'll be speaking at 4:45 p.m. and I'll be selling my spears all day at my Shaman Spears booth, and I'll have my new spears done by then. So I'm really excited about that. Also, there's going to be a lot of other amazing speakers at the event and vendors, and it's supposed to be a great place to get some Christmas shopping done. So, and there I am right now, right there. So, that will be held, like I said, just go to livingx.la. And actually, I'm not even honestly sure where exactly the event is. I should know this, but it's somewhere in LA. So you'll find all the information there. So I hope anyone in the LA area, feel free to make it out to that event and bring your friends, get some Christmas shopping done. It should be a lot of fun. All right, let's bring Leo on here. Leo, how's it going?
Oh, it's a pleasure to be in your presence, in your show. And of course, we are talking to each other the day after my wife has been your guest in another show. So that's great too. Great interview also you did. So compliments for your work that you're doing with Apollo's Odyssey.
Yeah, I had her on yesterday, and that was a lot of fun. We had a really good time, so I definitely want to encourage everyone to check that out. And that is on another channel that I did that, but you can find that on my Facebook page, the live feed, if you want to check that out. So that was a lot of fun, and it's good to have you back. There's so much going on in the world today. I don't even know where to start. I wanted to focus on. I wanted to pull a topic out of your book, and the Invisible Masters is a topic in your book here that is really fascinating to me. And I haven't read that one yet.
You are of course pointing out to volume 1, which is essential for everybody who wants to read my books, because it's a good point, a good work to start with, and it's a bit of a complex book, so it's not really an easy read. I would say it's more of a manual, and you need to treat it as such. So you will use it as a reference when then you go into all my other works, which might be more easy to digest. So keep that in mind. I'm pretty much available to any question you want to give me on that book, of course.
Yeah, I've been reading it a little on and off here because, like you said, it's a lot of information. So I like to kind of take it in a little bit at a time. And what's really fascinating to me is all the information you have about the different divisions of these secret societies. And, there's a lot of societies that you mentioned here that I haven't even heard of before. And, how they've been infiltrated over the years, and it's really fascinating, and this is a topic that's fascinated me for a long time. So it's definitely the most informative book I've read personally on the topic. And I love how at the beginning of the book you say, and this is something, so I give a Solutions for Humanity presentation. I go around the country giving presentations for that at conferences. And in my presentation, the number one solution I have for humanity is basically eliminating the globalist cabal, or resolving the issue of the globalist cabal. And, I think it's really awesome. At the beginning of this book, you say that basically the best way to resolve the issue of the globalist cabal is to share all their secrets, and that's what your mission has been with this series.
Yes, I've chose the path of unveiling since 2006, first on a blog, which of course was immediately taken down after a couple of months with a visit by the police and the intelligence services in Norway, where I was residing at the time. They threatened me. I didn't give up on the whole thing. I eventually reopened it with another server. Then I saw that the internet was really hard to work with, because you always got all these hackers, and at the same time a lot of trolls bringing around the internet all kind of fake information on my person. Especially when I started this exposure work, I was literally submerged with people that were trying to give fake information about me to, of course, get the people disinterested. And I insisted, and I had to really have a lot of patience, to tell you the truth. But at one point, around 2008, 2009, when I eventually met Christy, and of course I went with her to Japan, where she used to work, that's when I started instead to publish books, because Japan was the first place in the world which I'm really grateful for, started to publish my books. And I published 6 books in Japan, and it was a great experience that taught me a lot. And eventually in 2012 I started to also publish the same books in the Italian language, because I was searching for a publisher there. I had moved back to Italy in the middle of 2008 after I had been arrested for espionage in Norway. And I had to flee the country over there, going back to my native country of Italy, which I hadn't been living for 15 years, because I was living in London since 1994, and then in Oslo. So after bringing out my work in Italy, that's when my problem started. So I had also a certain degree of success. But it's actually because of the success that you often have that then the people who you are denouncing then get even more upset, and they
ain't that the truth.
So bringing out the truth is not easy, but like I said, and like you also said just earlier, my aim and my mission is to unveil these secrets, so we can really, like the New Testament says, know the truth, and the truth should set us free. That is one of the key passages of the book of Revelation. So This passage is inspirational for me and for my work, which I'm conducting still now in 2021. Of course, in the meantime, from 2015 onwards, I managed to bring out my books in the English language. 2014, 15, that's when I started to bring out my first books in the English language. I think, Christian, it was 2015, my first book in English language? I think. Well, that was Pope Francis the Last Pope, which I think was this one here, which became a bestseller. I did a few editions of this book, sold over 5,000 copies. So it was a great success also for my publisher, Blood Olson, our common friend. And after that, I, of course, translated my confessions. And as you can see, the books are very complex, especially volume 1. So you can imagine what kind of effort I had to put together to translate these books. It was a massive effort in which me and basically my wife, she was with me all the time. I was there working for hours and hours already to put together these books, but putting them together really didn't take that much as translating them, because I wanted to give my readers the feel they were actually reading a book written by a native English speaker. And I think that I managed to do that. What's your impression, honestly, Apolla?
Yeah, I think it's very well written, and yeah, I'm really enjoying
regarding
it.
the fact that, of course, it's a book that is being translated, so it's very difficult actually to already translate books, and this in particular I found even more complex because of the technical aspects that bring us into the secrets, into the secret realm of secret societies. So we did a great job, and Christy, of course, started to help me out editing them, and then she kind of got to like this aspect of doing things that eventually would bring her to then write her own books. So I mean, she was then after volume 1, after this one, and after volume 1, then we translated volume 2, volume 3, then there was Invisible Master, and so a lot of books that, of course, 5 books in total with Brad Olson, and then we started to bring also other books out once we finished with that contract. That, of course, was a great opportunity to make some of my most important works known in the English language, because volume 1 in reality was a bestseller when it came out in Japan and also in Italy. I sold in Italy and something like between 5,000 to 10,000 copies, which is for Italy an immense amount of books. And the same for Japan. In Japan, I sold something like 30,000 copies only of that. I mean, Japan has some incredible numbers when it comes to sales. It's not comparable here to the West. I don't know why they read so much, but they really read a lot in Japan. Another great thing about the books in Japan is that they all come out in hard copy with very much care in the detail, and a very, very quality paper that when you open up, it's like a work of art. So, I mean, bringing books in Japan is also very satisfying, I must say, for a writer. And though, I mean, volume 1 was very popular in Italy, and so it was also an opportunity. These books became popular, and it was an opportunity to then find a good distribution that will take them on board here in the US. And actually, Brad Olson did an excellent job in convincing IPG. So we launched, of course, also these books in the English language. And like I said, later on, also my wife and I published another series of books, always in the English language. We published volume 4. We published volume 5 and volume 6.66, and I'm about to publish in the next couple of months also volume 7, and another book which you might be interested in, which I brought out in the Italian language, never in the English language, is Illuminati and the Music of Hollywood.
Oh, wow.
And this book, basically, Illuminati in the Music of Hollywood, aside from the artwork on the cover, which was made by Christie, she makes an excellent drawing and painting on it, and that was really fantastic. But also, it's a really particular book because it gives you all the insights, real insights, not the alleged or supposed. Like a lot of times we hear, this guy's Illuminati, this other guy is Illuminati. No. Here I try to base my book on facts, not fiction. So, and hard facts. I'm a little bit of an investigative journalist. That was a little bit my trade. Aside from when I was brought up, I got immediately into journalism from a very young age, as well as in music. These were my two passions that they were parallel, because I started doing radio when I was 10 years old in 1980 with a Catholic radio station, reading fairy tales for kids. When I was 15, the priest awarded me because he said, if you serve, when I was 10, I went to this party in the piazza of the village. And there was these DJs, and they were playing music. And I really found it cool. And I was really inspired. It was 1980. The music was brilliant back then. Much better than
not like it is now.
not like it is. So I went to the priest there, who actually happened to be later on the founder of the Vatican media satellite broadcasting. So, I mean, it's a big shot nowadays, this guy. But back then, he was starting with a series of private radios, private TV. It was like the moment in which the Italians were open up to also other TV and other radio channels aside from the state-owned ones that had ruled the airwaves until the early 70s. So I went to him and I said, I would like to have my broadcast because I'm doing the fairy tales for kids, but I really like the music for the adults. And he said, well, you're too young, but if you serve Mass for a couple of years, maybe I will give you a show. So I had to serve Mass as a choir, as how you say, an altar boy. Altar boy. I served Mass from 1980 till 1983.
What exactly what do you do with that? Like I used to be a acolyte. That was my thing when I was in church growing up. What is serving Mass? I didn't go to Catholic church.
Okay. So the altar boys are the ones who participate in the ritual with the priest. So they have to bring to him maybe the main things that are used during the Mass. In the Catholic Mass, of course, the Eucharist is given. You have the wine, which is put in a special container. You have to pour that wine. The Eucharist, meaning so that you give, it's also contained in a special recipient. Everything is done in a ritual way. Then while the priest, by the way, these days is facing the people. Back in until the 70s, early 70s, until the Second Vatican Council rules came in place, they were actually facing the other side. However, I was actually with a priest who was very modern, already using the Second Vatican Council, but it was very instructive for me because I learned a lot of things, good and bad things. And the guy in the meantime teach me a lot of tricks because he was actually transmitting these masses to people through the media, through the TV. So he told me to help him out. At times he didn't have a cameraman who was always there. He had some fixed cameras and he had a cameraman, but sometimes he didn't have the camera. So he said, okay, why don't you learn? So then maybe you do the altar thing. Sometimes you can help me out with the cameras. And I remember one thing was to always film the first two lines of the church because they were the ones that were always busy with the old ladies reciting the rosary, while the rest of the church was usually empty. And there was a lot of tricks that he was using, even with the broadcast of the masses. When there were not a lot of people, we used to use some pre-recorded voices and things to make the church look full. It was these were like really tricks of the trade to learn how to manipulate, and it was made in a church. So I mean, it gave me the idea that
that's crazy.
The whole world is a scam. Nevertheless, you learn that very early if you are in that kind of environment. And yes, you participate to the ritual. I remember once I participated also to the or the initiation. Sorry, yes, it's not an order; it's an initiation of the Knights of Malta within the church, and that gave me an idea also that there were some other things going on, because people were giving a lot of importance to this whole thing, and I didn't really understand it at the time. I was very young. And but it was interesting also to see, for example, the priest of the Catholic Church that might go and harass some young children if they were poor. They will not do the same with me, because they knew what kind was my family background, but they will do it with other kids. So you will understand immediately how the word goes around in the Vatican. So I was really brought up, because then this later on in 1983, December, I remember still 1983, the priest gave me my first radio show. He said, listen, I have a space on Sunday evening from, I think it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 5, 6, till 8 o'clock, from 6 to 8, every Sunday. Do you want to have it? It's an experiment. You are very young. You might turn out to be the youngest DJ in Italy if we actually do that. I said, oh, okay, let's try. And so I started from there, and it was December 1983. And to piss off the bishop, I played Frankie Goes to Hollywood Relax, which is a really hardcore song. If you think, if you know the text of the song, is pretty explicit on what they're doing. Now, of course, I thought I would get away with it because the song was in English, but I didn't get away with it because I got a call from the bishop. He was immediately pissed off with me. So I was already creating a controversy in the Catholic Church. It went down very well. I started this to make one show. Then I started to do a couple more shows during the week after a couple of years. And after 3 years, I was in my hairdresser. I had started also to do some little nights here and there in various clubs. And there was this guy who, his cousin used to work in a big radio station. But this was actually a more political radio station, though it was doing music also. And in that case, it was of the Socialist Party. And he said, well, why are you hanging out with those priests? They don't appreciate your music. Why don't you come and do a show for us? So because they had my show on Sunday night and they liked it. They thought I had some potential. So then I started a new show. And that was called, the first show was called DJ Music. And the second show was called Babylon Music of the Future. And that was when electro was starting to explode. And it was a really obscure music for Italy. It was already obscure for America. It was in the middle of that breakdance scenario.
And you were only like 14, you said, or 10?
Yeah, something? I was 15 at that point. Wow. When I got picked up to do Babylon Music of the Future, I was...
That's so awesome.
When I was 16, I started. And when I started, I got so much involved into doing radio that gradually my school was kind of fading out, because I was even sleeping inside the radio at times because I didn't have a car. I couldn't drive a car. And the school was not far from the radio station. And my parents used to live in the middle of nowhere in the countryside. So the only way I could have is to just sleep at the radio station. So I got a mattress there. And so to learn the tricks of the trade, reel to reel, mixing, everything, I would spend my whole nights there. And then in the morning, I actually started to read the news. I was very young. I was between 16 and 17. And I started to read the news mixed with the music. So at that point, that radio had of course, a press pass that I was given. So I could also go around to interview people with the press, because when you have a press pass, you can go around, and aside from maybe going to places for free, you can actually go around and get more credibility. Yeah. So I was young, I was 16, but I was already tall. I tried to make myself look older, and I would go and interview all kinds of people, even very famous people. I mean, I interviewed all kinds of musicians, And also not only musicians, I interviewed also some very far out characters like Brian Geisen, who used to work with William Burroughs and be a hero of the Rolling Stones. I interviewed, of course, the Pet Shop Boys. I interviewed Saxon, who was a Metallica band. I interviewed all kinds of weird people that will, thanks to my grandmother, basically, because she was a PR, public relation, among many other things. She had worked. She of course, teach the Chekhov method at the Actor Studio. She was very popular as an actress. She learned the Chekhov method directly from Chekhov, and then she was with there where she met my grandfather in New York during the Second World War, because they were both working at the intelligence headquarters, deciphering codes. Cryptology was a specialty also, amongst other things. So you can find in that book, actually, in the chapter dedicated in volume 1 to espionage, you will find some of the history of my grandmother, which is actually on the internet. People can go and see it. She was called Anne Cumming, and it's pretty official that she was doing these things. So Churchill and Roosevelt, when they were exchanging communications, they were doing it thanks to my grandmother. I was pretty far out. But my grandmother also gave me a lot of possibilities since a young age, because she was, of course, somebody who had worked both in the show business, teaching acting, being an assistant of Fellini, Zeffirelli during the Dolce Vita. But at the same time, she had also this other less known side where she was working for the intelligence. So it was like one or the other. And she had a lot of knowledge about the occult, because when I was 12 years old, she gave me my first Aleister Crowley book. I was serving as an altar boy, but then I had my grandmother who was giving me the book of thought of Aleister Crowley when I was 12 years old. So it was pretty a weird upbringing, but a very original one indeed. And so I think that in the end, this comes out in my books, which are a bit of a mix of experiences, aside from me wanting to explain to the people really who is, of course, ruling us. I think that if I stayed with my mouth silent at this point, I could have been anywhere in the world. I could have been in Hollywood being a big shot. I could have been as a big shot doing something else. I could have really had all kinds of possibilities given to me. But I didn't want to follow that kind of. I actually, even when it comes down to my own DJing and the work I did, arriving very early to success, because after that radio show, after 3 or 4 years, I was on national radio in Italy. I was exploding and I was the first one who invented. Basically in 1989, I did the first rave in Italy. And
that's really cool.
So I had also that thing going on. And then I had, of course, like I said, always my side thing with the radio, which I always kept. I always loved doing some radio, which was not only music. I like music, and I like also to do talk shows. To participate vocally into the. That is not possible in a disco. So when you are a DJ, things are. In the 80s were a little bit mixed, because at times you still have a DJ intervening maybe with the mic even during a party and stuff. But in reality, the two things were already separated. But so I had the DJing in the night in the clubs, playing the music, and then playing instead the music in the radio, where you present the tracks, you talk, you give the news. And that's also when I got very much involved with news. And then later on, when I was about 20 and I became quite popular, I met a journalist called Dino D'Arcangelo, who unfortunately is no longer with us, who became a good friend of mine, and he taught me everything. He was a very famous journalist working for one of the main Italian newspapers called La Repubblica. And he just said, come into the newspaper, sit down with me, and I teach you, and we can write articles together and stuff, and I teach you how to do it. Remember that I had given up at that point on school. I had given up on going to university. I didn't want to be in the system. But at the same time, I was drawn into the system from another angle, because I was in the Air Force when I was in 1989, when I was 19.
wow.
And I was brought into the Air Force because my father saw that I didn't really want to go to school, didn't want to do this, wanted to just go on with my project, and he wasn't really convinced about it, of course, like all parents are when you are trying to, even if I was already making some successful things, because by the time I was 18, 19, I was earning a lot of money, a lot more money than my father was. I was really earning a lot of money. In the 80s, money was all over the place. And if you were a DJ in a 5,000 people club, I mean, I was earning, I remember in 1988, I was earning something like between $3,000 to $5,000 a month, which is a lot of money, even now, let alone back then. So it was an incredible experience, and I kept insisting in wanting to be that. My father said, well, I don't know, I might send you to the Air Force, because he had a lot of connections. So he just lifted the phone call, talked with his friend, the general, said, well, I want my son to go to the Air Force. And as you have to do 1 year of military, obligatory at that time in Italy, not any longer, but at that time you had to do 1 year of military, I ended up sent to the Air Force. And it was there, which was really the start of everything for me, because then I was enrolled in Gladio, which was a secret stay-behind operation against the communists.
Oh, wow.
And I started to meet, and then I was enrolled by the people who eventually initiated me in Freemasonry in 1993. So, and the Freemasonry...
In the Air Force?
Well, yes, in the Air Force, yeah. I was in the Ministry of Defense. The first couple of months I was in a base in Viterbo, just training up, and it was like really hard because you didn't get much sleep. Helicopters flying day and night when you are in an airport, military airport.
Did you ever learn to fly?
No, I was actually trained to protect the most expensive planes and things. And so I was trained to basically go with the police to shoot machine guns, bombs, all that kind of stuff. So I was like mainly a lot of shooting. So I'm a good shooter still nowadays because of that. And then finished the 2 months, which were not that easy. Strange things happened in these 2 months, I tell you, because I arrived there, and after a week, everybody is due to have the vaccines. And that is, like, and we were all scared, and I was really scared. I said, fuck, now we're going to be all screwed up because I'm going to be screwed up. I didn't have, these vaccines were not really something I wanted to do. Though I had done some vaccine in the early ages, when I was in the 70s, because I had to go to India with my father, and so he was a doctor, so I had to take some vaccine. But the crazy thing was that they, because I got in a fight quite immediately after I got there, people harass you all the time. I couldn't take it, so I just started to get in confrontation. They sent me to wash 5,000 dishes. Now, when you wash 5,000 dishes, yeah, in the middle of the summer, washing 5,000 dishes in these big mega machines, the heat, everything was like outstanding. After 2 days, I was sick. I was sick with the 40 of flu. I had the temperature had rose, and I was sick, obviously. And so they brought me to the hospital. And at that point, I avoided the vaccines, though. I avoided the vaccines. Fortunately, that was a good side of things. And plus, the crazy thing was I sit down and then I was in this bed, and the guy who was in the same room with me, he says, I recognize you. Yes, you are the DJ. You were in that rave I went last month, because before going to the military, I did the first rave in Italy, and this guy happened to be there. So, so he said, well, if you want to stay here, just put some hot chili pepper under your arm. So when they come and put the measure of for the flu, you're always hot. So I was, and so I went on. So I went on into the thing, but after a couple of months, I was still in this base for training. Then everybody left, and they left me and another 2 people in a base of thousands of people. There were only 2-3 people left after the training. And so something strange was going on. A general called me up and said, well, Leo, we know who you are. You've been a bit sick and stuff. We decided to send you to the Ministry of Defense to work in this office, taking care of, basically, I was taking care of theater, stadiums, filling them up with military personnel and stuff, whatever. It was quite interesting. So they sent me to the Ministry of Defense. In the Ministry of Defense, I met somebody who, of course, had seen who my grandfather was and knew my family background. And this guy was a member of Gladio. And so he called me up and said, well, if you ever need any favors, we are here. I said, okay. I said, weird, this guy, need any favor, but I never met him, whatever. I was young, you are 19, you don't know, 1980, 1920. But then this guy, I understood he was a big shot in the bad way. He basically had been arrested because he was in the mafia, but he then was given the possibility of spending alternatively 2 years in the military. And he was connected to the Gladio because these people were trained, of course, were picking up some very, very strange individuals to do very strange jobs on the side. So he said, okay, if you come with me tonight and do this special operation with me, we will break up into the house of a guy from the Serbian intelligence and we will steal some documents. I said, what? I said, well, if you want, we can make your life very easy, but we can also make your life very difficult. So that's when I got my first contact with this stay behind operation that was nearly about to be dismantled because we were at the end of the Cold War. But they wanted to have some papers from this guy. Of course, there was an ongoing war there that was about to be triggered in the ex-Yugoslavia. So, and Serbia was very close to Russia. So remember that this was done within NATO, and Gladio was a NATO secret operation. So I started with that. It was my first operation. I managed miraculously to break into this place. There was even a dog. I don't know how I got to silence him. He was tranquil. But I went with this guy next to me. He didn't do anything. He wanted to see if I was able to do. Of course, he would have protected me. This guy had weapons. He was a gangster, basically. But I had seen in the movies how you get into a house, using the credit card. I saw it in the movies. I never did it, but I had to do it.
Did they give you any spy devices?
No, but the moment in which we went in, then I saw that he took out the camera, microfilm, the whole thing. All the material had to be microfilm. So it was like a proper espionage operation. And that was the first operation, and was not only the last one. But in that situation, I got to start a path that will bring me eventually to have some privileges within the military, which I managed to use at my advantage. And then in the end, of course, after a year, actually ended up after 30 months the military, because they gave me an extra month because I had been sick. In the meantime, I had measles or something, I remember. And I had been punished because one day when I was in the office early in the morning, coming back from a club, because at that point I used to DJ until 6 o'clock in the clubs, and at 7:30 I used to be in the office. I had 1 hour and a half to go in my car and change myself. Imagine that. And it was a club in the center of Rome, and I would be so I was very energetic, did a lot of things when I was young. Then, of course, I was very successful with my DJ and with my radio and everything. I was so successful that a friend of my father called me up and said, "This gentleman wants to meet you." And that was when I was eventually initiated in Freemasonry. And it was really a scene out of a James Bond movie. I remember still the place like it's yesterday. It was in Trastevere, in the center of Rome, not far from the Vatican. He said, "Just come here." I opened up at the door. I went in. It was a very nice fancy place. remember the stairs, a lot of bookcases everywhere, books. There was a secretary up writing like this, like some kind of. And then this guy will come, now come in my room, like this. And so he shut the door and he said, well, we've been watching you for a couple of years now. You have done definitely some incredible things. And, without having used any of my family connections, because I, in the meantime, was doing all these things using another surname, Young, rather than Zagami. So they could never connect me to my grandfather, who was Leopoldo Zagami. So remember that I was always operating without giving my real name, because that one might have been a problem. So they actually admired the fact that without using my name, without using my family connections, I had arrived to move thousands of people, and I actually demonstrated I had a lot of potential. And so they were like, well, we like what you're doing. They were very serious. Of course, the guy was a Sicilian gentleman, and he happened to be a Prince Aliata di Montereale. And the guy is a very, very serious individual. In fact, you actually see a guy portraying him in The Godfather Part 3. So a very serious individual, deadly serious. And he offered me to be initiated. I didn't even really know much about the soul world, apart from the fact that when I was very young, about 10 years of age, 8, 9, maybe 9, I found in my grandfather's desk, and he had been dead for 5 years already, a Masonic passport. And this Masonic passport was not like just a little Masonic passport. It was like a lengthy Masonic passport with all the rules, the regulations, what the society was all about, and his degree in that moment. And so I read it. I went to my father and said, what is this? And my father watched me and said, yeah, well, you don't worry. You don't know. You don't need to know more about it. So from that moment onwards, I knew there was something going on with this Masonic, because my grandfather had been a Mason, but nobody really wanted to explain me what Masonry was. So I was curious. I had, of course, studied just personally. From the age of 10, I started to study magic, the occult. My family's library was very big, and when my father was not around, because if he was around, he would kick my ass if I read certain books. I will go there and read these books and get informed. Aside from my music career and doing also the journalist on the side, I started to get a lot of interest in these subjects, which I found very interesting, but also very informative. They will actually benefit my creative work, because remember, when you're doing music, when you're doing art, you need inspiration, and this stuff really inspires you a lot, no? And
definitely.
And then when I got initiated, though, things got very, very different. It was April 1993. I had started the process for practicing this book, this grimoire, The Magic of Abramelin and the Mage, that last 6 months. I had isolated myself in a theater for puppets, puppet theater, near Campo di Fiori in Rome, in the center of Rome. There was this puppet theater, English puppet theater, in the English language. It was done by these two ladies who were the adopted daughters of Albert Einstein. They were Jews. And they had been adopted by Albert Einstein during the war, because their parents, I think, had been brought to Auschwitz or something.
You say puppets, like these kind of puppets? I'm actually making puppets for a show right now.
Well, I actually have puppets on my own Italian show. I have a couple of puppets. I might send you a couple of videos so you can see them.
I just made a puppet of Biden for a certain show, for a platform. It's pretty funny.
I don't do them, and actually, it's a friend of mine who does them for my show. I don't really, but I lived in a puppet theater, and that was an incredible experience, because apart from the fact that every Sunday I had to leave the premises wherever I was, because of course they had to use it for for the children. So the premises will be cleansed by this energy of the children coming in every Sunday, no? But it was also a very weird experience what happened in that place, with me conjuring certain forces in a specific place in the center of Rome, which is very important because Giordano Bruno ended up being killed there by the Vatican. He was the first one who talked about aliens, inhabitants in other planets. He was somebody who talked about things the Vatican didn't want him to talk. He used to be a friar before, a priest, a monk, sorry. And then he got persecuted because of his unusual philosophy and religious beliefs, and eventually he would get killed. And they were so afraid of him when they sent him to be burnt in Campo dei Fiori, which was literally 100 meters from where I used to live. They brought him there with a mask, so he couldn't open even his mouth, locked, caged. His mouth was caged. So I was very sad. And there is now a statue there that the Freemasons, important Freemason in Italy, over 100 years ago, did of this Giordano Bruno. So for me, of course, the experience of living there and doing this magic of Abramelin was already very strong. Being initiated into a reality like Freemasonry, but not any kind of Freemason, because it wasn't your ordinary lodge. People have to understand this. Your ordinary lodge you have here in America is more of a social endeavor than an esoteric or even an occult, but it can become now more inclined towards a certain, I mean, I saw that a lot of lodges are getting into esotericism very heavily, and sometimes in a negative way, because they get taken over by occultists and Satanists. But the kind of Freemasonry I was dealing with was also leading to the Illuminati. It was the Illuminati of the New World Order. There was people involved with politics, with espionage, with all kinds of political maneuvers aside from magical one. It was a completely new world for me, and the people involved in it were very powerful people. So I am really, in a way, still I bring here my compass square within the American flag, though I don't have anything to do any longer with Freemasonry after I discovered that here in California they were meeting on Zoom at one point, plus they discuss too much. They say they don't discuss religion and politics, but then they are infiltrated left, right, and center by people who were anti-Trump, people who wanted to push progressive ideals, Muslim Brotherhood, Ordo Templi Orientis, and all this nonsense. So forget about it. But my path into Freemasonry was a rather different one, and brought me to meet the right people, to which develop certain things, but also, of course, you can get in trouble. I got in trouble, and I had to leave Italy in 1994 because I got in trouble. I got really in trouble. I mean, soon after being initiated, it didn't take that long until, of course, starting to, you are involved with all these people. And I was involved with a group called La Banda della Maiana, which was a very powerful group of gangsters in Rome that used to work with the intelligence services. Some of them were part of the Jewish, of the Israeli Mossad. And so I had basically, it was a very difficult period for Italy in general, because Italy in the early 90s was shifting. The moment in which the Cold War ended, then all that system I was part of myself, briefly, from 1989, collapsed altogether, because America was no longer willing, the moment in which Russia and the Soviet Union ended, they didn't want to have anything to do anymore with all these stay behind operations and give them any incentives to fight communism. And so things were changing, and it was an internal war, and of course I was also involved in that magic of Abramelin the Mage, which I described very well in volume 3 of my Confessions. And I ended up having to leave Italy eventually. In 1994, I then went to London. And in London, for a few years, I kind of like focused mostly on my music side of things, on my music, on establishing a record label, on my DJ work. I was also a manager to various artists, and had a very successful career. But then I was dragged back into, because of course I had been extracted by my grandmaster in Italy before he died, because he died the year after he initiated me, unfortunately, and he died under arrest because he himself got in trouble. And it's too complex now to explain everything, because I explain all this in my confessions, and it's, as you know, there are books that are this thick, so you have a lot of but to be very synthetic for your viewers, I can say that I had to leave. I went to London. London, of course, I'm half English. I'm related to the Queen of England. And for that reason, I had the doors open in Freemasonry to the best lodges possible and imaginable. And so I regularized my position, because they didn't consider the Masonic initiation I had taken with the Prince Aliata di Monreale, Gianfranco, as regular. So I had to repeat it. I had to repeat actually my initiation several times in different contexts, because sometimes they didn't recognize each other. So they wanted to repeat it. So I repeated the initiation, but at the same time, I entered also other secret societies. I joined the Ordo Templi Orientis of Aleister Crowley in London, the Tabula Rasa Lodge. I joined the Fraternitas Rosacruciana Antigua in Norway, which I then became the leader for Great Britain later on, and directed a lodge of the Fraternitas Rosacruciana Antigua of Arnold Krumheller. And then I was also involved with people from other secret societies, working with them, like the Società Rosacruciana in Anglia, because I was a Rosacrucian. And I worked very much in this contest until I left London. Then I went, of course, to live in Oslo. So I was still living in this situation. But then there were some internal conflicts that eventually will push me in 2006 to start my confessions and to break up with my past. But in 1999, I was brought to become a member of a very powerful elite group in the New World Order. You see, in 1993, when I was initiated by the Prince Aliata di Monreale in the Illuminati, the idea was that because communism had failed at that point, and a series of countries were in disarray in the early 90s, were breaking up from what used to be the sphere of interest of the Soviet Union, Romania, Ukraine, that now, and many others. They wanted to promote monarchy as an alternative to the democracy, to the communist. Because, of course, here we are in a constitutional republic, but in Europe, we have a long monarchic tradition in a lot of countries, and it was seen as a possibility to fight better communism. In fact, if I had to choose in Europe a system to fight better communism, I would say that the republic doesn't really work. I'm the demonstration of that. I had to flee Italy in 2019 because Italy is way too communist, and the republic that was created in Italy was created on a fraud. You have to understand that Italy was a monarchy until June of 1946. In June 1946, with the Democrats in power here in the US, they wanted to eliminate the monarchy in Italy because they said it had supported Mussolini. At that point, they frauded the pool. There was a pool, a national poll was made. People had to vote, choose the republic or the monarchy. And in Italy, because at that time, 70%, I repeat, 70% of the people were ignorant, didn't know how to read and write, the Secret Service was very easy to go around and say, put it here, put an X here, no worries, it's a monarchy. So then that's how we got the republic in Italy. And it's not a republic on the constitutional principles that we have here, but it's rather a republic that continue to have the politics of the fascists, but to use them against the fascists and anybody else that will interfere with this new path in Italy.
Wow.
that was led by the Christian Democrats, which were the Jesuits. The Jesuits have their headquarters worldwide in a square in Italy called Piazza del Gesù. And it's basically a little square. I mean, it's not that big. It's a little square. But in this square, there was so much power because on one side there is, I made even a documentary about it for Enigma TV. I mean, on one side you have the Mother Church of the Jesuits, where all the Jesuits worldwide have to go to become Jesuits. Then you had the headquarters of the Christian Democrat Party in the center of the square. And on the other side of the square, you had the headquarters of the Supreme Council for the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite. So the three powers that ruled Italy in one little square. And I remember when I brought Christy there the first time, and we actually went to do some filming with secret cameras I had put so I could get to make some secret filming.
Wow.
So yeah, no, that was very much fun. But I mean, I had all these experiences, and for me, at the end of the day, now it's nice to be able to tell them in a very much relaxed way with you, no?
Yeah, no, it's really incredible hearing your stories. And I don't know if I told you, this is actually a 1-hour show today.
Yeah.
So we only have a few minutes left here.
Sure.
So it's been really great hearing your background, and I
Well,
think
I mean,
definitely
with
connected with you on the whole.
I mean, the Invisible Master, and you called it at the beginning, is basically meeting these entities that direct everybody through, of course, some terrestrial organizations that you interact with, you know. So when I came to meet with these entities initially, I met them because I was invoking them, but then later on, the crazy thing is that they materialize in persons and in secret societies that literally came to me and said, I'm a representative of this, write to us too. We are waiting for you. And you are like that, you know? You are like, how the hell?
Like they're not physically here, like they're some interdimensional being or something?
Yeah, I'm talking about interdimensional being, and then they will have those physical representatives that they will come to you. And at that time, there was no internet, there was no BS, there was not all that. It was a very different kind of reality. When I, for example, was the first time I remember, it was 1994, 95, I was contacted by, I think it was the OTO in Rome. They came to me, I was DJing that night. The guy said, we know you're making some interesting discovery stuff. He gave me a piece of paper, it was a green paper with written a PO box. He says, write to us and we will reply to you. That was it. So, I mean, it was really, really strange. But in the end, in 1999, I joined the Monte Carlo Lodge in the Principality of Monaco, and that worked out until 2006, when in the end I said I had enough of this crazy, insane world, and I want to expose all of these motherfuckers. Sorry if I say this word, because they are not really doing any good for mankind. And I was really wanting to change my life, and I did. I completely changed my life from that moment onwards. And I'm glad to be on your show. For all the people who, of course, are viewing us today, it's an experience. You know, people can have an experience in life. And I had a very interesting one until the age of 36. But from the age of 36 onwards, now I'm 51, I decided to take a new path. And my new path is described also with my books that I hope will help a lot of people realize the dangers of this new world order, because this is only the beginning, what you're seeing now with the pandemic. This is only the beginning. The next 9 years are going to be the years in which the mark of the beast and microchipping manifest in front of you, and you are screwed up for life, and that's it. There's no turning back after you take that. So
I wasn't able to end that with the Aftermath audience because I wanted you to finish that. But thank you so much, Leo, for coming on. I mean, we're on YouTube now, so I don't know if you wanted to finish what you were saying. Well, we're still live on YouTube, so.
Sure. Well, thank you so much again for having me on your show. I would suggest people to, of course, read the volume 1 that you have pointed out at the beginning is essential to understand all the other books later on. And then Invisible Master, of course, because this is a very important book. I will say also regarding the Age of Cyber Satan, Artificial Intelligence and Robotics, this new book here. All my books you find there, linked, my latest ones, on my website. As you know, my website was actually, I don't know actually if you know that, but it was actually brought down a few days ago.
I heard about that.
Yes. We had a very bad hacker attack. We had to take away the comment board from the site because they were entering through the comment. The hackers had... Fortunately, they didn't damage the whole site. So I don't really care that much for the comments. It's not a site for doing social interaction. Nowadays, we have so many ways of doing social interaction. You don't need comments on an article. So I've just made it a little bit more secure now after this cyber attack. And strange enough, it came after I talked about a really odd topic, which was this movie from 1963 entitled Omicron. Which
I heard about that.
Yeah. And it's
have you seen it? I haven't seen it
sure,
yet, but everyone's been talking about it.
It's an Italian movie made by a guy I knew, Gregoretti, a student of the Jesuits, who was also a journalist, who had the possibility of meeting back in the days, because as I told you, I was also very much involved in journalism. And he had... he was a very eclectic man. He made different things in his life. He made some great movies, but of course, he was very much a guy who knew about things because he was brought up in a Jesuit environment. He studied 13 years with the Jesuits. So he brought out this movie in 1983, and I broadcast it on my channel. Actually, on my channels on YouTube, which are we call them the Zagamiani channels, because in Italy there is a whole movement dedicated to my work. It's called the Zagamiani movement. And you can find Omicron on my channel. I still have it on. They didn't bring it down. There's no copyright claims on that movie, apparently. And I was able to find it. It's not in the English language. But the interesting thing about the topic of this movie is incredible. I mean, it's a very avant-garde movie. I mean, it was done, of course, just at the early 60s. The guy who was a very great intellectual, aside from being a student of the Jesuits, he had a great, brilliant mind. In the end of the 50s, as you know, the cinema world was taken by the Nouvelle Vague of Jean Cocteau, all the people within the Nouvelle Vague in France. There was a style of making movies that was very specific. And he wanted to join that kind of style, using sci-fi to actually... he wanted to use sci-fi in an unusual way, to criticize social problems. He wanted to use a sci-fi topic. It's a very unusual thing to actually use. I mean, even himself, when he went to the producers to see if he would get this movie produced, they were like, what? You want to do a sci-fi, but it's about a guy who works in a factory? The actual, to synthesize the concept of this movie, an alien demon enters the body of this factory worker. He is called Omicron. And this alien species who wants to invade Earth wants to understand more about this planet. And after Omicron goes around, they understand that the people who are ruling this planet are an elite. So there's no reason why we should send big spaceship to invade the planet. Just possess the minds of the elite. Send them another Omicron aliens like Omicron. That because the planet where Omicron is from is planet Ultra, like MK Ultra. In the early 60s, MK Ultra was a big reality. And so, like I wrote also in my article, you can find on leozagami.com about this, because I wrote an article about it. That probably cost me the censor, I don't know, the hacker attack. Because the strange thing about this movie is that he is very honest about how the system works and how the elite manipulates the whole system. Sells them products, makes them need the products in this vicious circle. And then in the end of the movie, Omicron, of course, wants to kill his own body because he wants to go back to planet Ultra and finds any way possible to get people to kill him. And when eventually he dies, the people at you have this weird scene in which this round table of all the owners of these factories meet up, and then the door is closed, and they start to do what Omicron used to do, because the guys who direct all the factories, they are already aliens. They are part of the elite, and they are manipulating the human population into this basic peaceful, seemingly peaceful invasion, because you can't really see it, but it's still there. Is the next step from invasion of the body snatch or something like that. I mean, it's more psychologic the way it's played, because he's also very much into describing the social aspects of the society he's living with. And I must say that from what he says, nothing has changed much from 1963 till now. And it's true. From what I have also said in Invisible Master, many of the elite and the peoples from the higher echelons of the secret societies that rule this planet, that we commonly refer to as the Illuminati, have always interacted with these extra-dimensional entities, and some of them have been possessed by them deliberately in a stage which is known as controlled possession. So I think that is interesting that this movie has this name, and it's a very weird synchronicity that brings this name now as the latest variant, which is part, of course, of a strategy of tension that is never ending until we all get eventually whatever, the vax, or we all get microchipped, because that's the end game is shown now in Sweden. Just the last few days, they have shown how they are putting the vaccine passports inside with a microchip, shot in, and that's it. And so we don't really have much time to rebel to all this. But what I can suggest is to stay away from the big cities as much as you can, because they are the ones that are really doomed. And then to find yourself a like-minded community to be able to escape the situation that is coming up in the next few years. What
are your predictions on what's coming? Because I know you predicted all this that was coming in your books.
Yeah, in 2015,
in the last couple years.
Yeah, in 2015, in volume 2 of my confession, I wrote that in 2020 there will be a vaccine that will lock us all up and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, it was all written already in my book. So, like you said, very much in detail. So, what will happen next? So, what will happen next is that they want to use the period between now to 2025 to find all the possible excuses imaginable possible to get people to eventually use the microchipping as a return to normality. The moment in which they will service the people with the microchipping, it will be because in the eye of the common folk, they are offering you freedom. You will be able to finally do what you were doing before. Wow. Just do this, no worries. And then you can go around, no mask, no nothing. You don't have to show any documents. You just can go through at the airport, through this, through there, at the supermarket. So that is their last goal. And it's to build up, because they have the capacity now to do all this technologically. And what is happening behind the scenes is, of course, the push towards transhumanism. That is their ultimate goal, because the microchipping is the initial stage of the transhumanist stage coming, because you are already merging with the machine the moment you put a microchip, but then there will be the computer brain interface, everything else, So that is, it's all heading towards the ultimate controlled society of 2030, where you will be happy, own, but you don't own anything, like they say at the World Economic Forum. Be happy, but not. How does that happen? It happens basically with never-ending lockdowns, restrictions, and things. In the end, people for desperation will just cage themselves in their VR reality, in their metaverse, while the rich and famous will be in their islands, wherever they are, thinking, well, now we have caged them. We just need to give them another few vaccines, and then they will all die, and the world will be left for us. 80% need to go. It's written in the Georgia Guidestone, and these people are really serious about what they have written. So,
I've met some of these people here in LA, and like I've heard them discuss this, and that's it's real.
well,
They're
you
really
see, one
planning
of
it.
the crazy things is that in the end of the 60s, a group that really was enormously influential for all this was the Club of Rome. The Club of Rome was founded in Rome by a guy called Aurelio Peccei. Aurelio Peccei became enormously influential because Klaus Schwab, which now you know because he's the guy who founded the World Economic Forum, after going to the Club of Rome said, wow, I want to start the World Economic Forum in Davos. Let's start. And then what the first thing, though, that they did was to base their work on the research that was conducted at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, at the MIT, with these new computer programs, Word 1 and Word 3. With these two computer programs, they predicted the future of humanity. And at that point in 1973, I think, Aurelio Peccei went to Davos, gave his speech about the results of it, and they said, we have to eliminate this part of humanity, otherwise we will not be able to sustain the whole thing.
Wow, really?
So that is like very much in a few words what they did. But the story is much more complex, and it will take, of course, hours. But we can say that in a way, people don't really realize why Klaus Schwab is so powerful. They say, who is this guy? I never heard of him. Is he a politician? No. Who is this guy? Well, if you go and study the history of his family has been one of the key assets of the New World Order in regards to the making of the first atomic bomb. So that's where it goes. It goes to nuclear power, atomic bombs, heavy water, which was produced in Norway, and of course, at the time, with the backing of the Nazis, that later on, fortunately, were sabotaged by commandos in Norway. Otherwise, probably the Nazis would have won the Second World War. But the Nazis were never really defeated completely. It was all a show. And I think it was even a show to say that the Second World War ended in 1945, because nothing never ended in 1945. It continued to this day.
I mean, those scientists just came over here and started working with our scientists.
Absolutely. And then you have, of course, all the secret program. You have, of course, these scientists coming in, bringing with them also their belief. These Nazis who also worked with MK Ultra, who worked with the space program with NASA. It's all part of course. If people have to say where is Nazis coming from, Nazism is coming from a very occult background, and a very occult background that people still don't realize how influential it was, even in subjects like anti-Semitism. Now, I'm a little bit Jewish. I have Ashkenazi Jewish blood. My wife also. We are a little bit Jewish.
I do as well.
But the thing is that this hate for the Jewish people was established within an occultistic background, and I don't think that till today people have realized the importance of analyzing that occultistic background in relationship to the birth of this anti-Semitic movement that then later on, unfortunately, brought millions of Jews to the gas chamber. So I think there should be a lot more taking seriously what happened back then, and understanding how Hitler was brought up amongst people like Guido von List, Liebenfels, and how influential these people were, and the damage they ended up doing. Because remember, all these people were coming from the same milieu, which was the Theosophical Society, which also gave birth to, in a way, a lot of aspects of the New Age movement, and also ufology, like I explain in this book, as well as in this other book, volume 4 of my confession. So thank you so much for having me on. I hope that this really has today given the possibility to a lot of people to understand a few things, and definitely in the future we will maybe continue, and I hope I will be able next time to introduce you my new book, volume 7.
Yeah, thank you so much, Leo, for coming on. You definitely cleared a lot of information up for me, and I think everyone here. So really appreciate it, and love to have you on again as soon as you have your new book published. That'd be amazing. And to everyone out there who didn't see my show yesterday, you're definitely going to want to check that out. That was with his wife, Christy, and it went really well also.
Yeah.
And her book is really amazing as well. And reading that and seeing her side of the story of your story together was really interesting. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it gives an ulterior testimony. And I think it was really good to interview them, because a lot of people, sometimes only have my side of the story, and they think that sometimes I make things up. Well, guys, I'm sorry for you to disappoint you, but you can't make these things up. And in reality, tell you the truth, is much more astonishing than fiction. It's really
Yeah, definitely.
fiction, and at times even more unbelievable than fiction. So you are like, this guy's exaggerating. But my wife, that has been with me so many years, was able to witness herself certain things and to relay them completely independently in these books. So there are two, by the way, volume 1 and volume 2. There's 2 books. So you have a lot of information that in the end is very important for confirming the existence of this hidden elite and how they operate. It's nice, of course, to hear at times fancy castles, fancy places, but sometimes then, like you heard yourself from Christy yesterday, there is those dark experiences which are really scary, that we were actually lucky enough to survive. So thank you so much, Apolla. Keep on doing what you're doing, because you're doing a great job.
Thanks so much, Leo. Thanks for coming on. And thanks everyone for joining us tonight on Apollo's Odyssey. Please go ahead, make sure you go ahead and check out my Shaman Spears site. I have a lot of new products up on there. That is at shamanspears.com. And I'll be at the Living Expo this weekend in LA. So join me there. Until next time on Apollo's Odyssey, over and out.